Sometimes it happens that we get a fabric just in time for the perfect pattern to come along, and you know it's meant to be. This striped denim from Rex Fabrics was the perfect pairing for the Unfettered Patterns overalls. It's a medium weight denim, it was easy to sew with, and I'm so happy with how they turned out. This design is a comfortable fitting silhouette with 2 front patch pockets, and we'll be sewing everything including the facings and attaching the classic overalls hardware. Pair these overalls with a tank in the summertime and a turtleneck in the winter and you have an all-season piece. You could even shorten the leg length to create short overalls. Lots of options, let's get sewing. Fold the top raw edge of one of your pocket pieces to the wrong side by 1/4 inch. Once you've pressed that raw edge in place, then we're going to turn the top edge once more, this time to the right side by 1 inch. And pin the outer edges in place. Sew the flap in place on both sides with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trim the top corners. Then we're going to finish the side and bottom edges. Flip the top of the pocket right side out and give the top edge a good press. Then we're going to sew from this bottom inner edge of the pocket flap from one side straight across to the other. Then we can press the finished top and bottom edges to the wrong side by 3/8 inch. Here is the right side of one of my front pant pieces, and I'm going to place the top of the pocket at the marking transferred from the pattern piece. Pin in place along the side and bottom edges. Edge stitch the pocket in place along the side and bottom edges, back stitching at those top edges to secure. If you like, you can add an additional row of top stitching 1/4 inch away from the edge of the pocket to reinforce. Repeat to create both pockets. Place both front pieces right sides together and pin the center front seam. Sew this center seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finish the raw edges together, then press that seam toward the left side as worn. Now that I've pressed my seam allowance toward the left side as worn, we're going to top stitch the seam allowance in place from the right side. Sewing about 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch to secure the seam allowance from the top to the bottom of the seam that we just sewed. Now we'll sew the 2 back pant pieces together along the center back in the same way as we did for the front pieces, placing these back pieces right sides together, pinning in place, then sewing with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finish the raw edges together, then press them toward the left back piece as worn. Once that's sewn, we'll be top stitching in the same way as we did for the front pieces. Place the front and back pant pieces right sides together and pin along the side seams and the inseam. Then we can sew both of the side seams and the entire inseam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and finish the raw edges together, then press the seams toward the back of the garment. To hem the bottom of each pant leg, we're going to fold the bottom hem to the wrong side by 2 3/4 of an inch. Then we can unfold the initial fold and press the bottom raw edge all the way around to the wrong side by 1/4 of an inch. With the bottom 1/4 inch tucked under, refold along the initial fold line and pin in place all the way around. Edge stitch along the upper inner fold all the way around to complete the hem. To create the straps, we're going to form rolled hems along both long edges of the strap pieces. The width of these rolled hems depends on the hardware that you've selected. Once you've rolled the hem along both long edges, you want the final width of the strap to cleanly go through the hardware. I'm going to roll both edges by 1/4 of an inch, then once more by 3/8 of an inch on both sides. Now that I've pressed both long edges to the wrong side twice, and I know that that width is going to allow the hardware to slide easily through the strap, I'm going to edge stitch in place along both inner edges of the folds. Repeat to create both strap pieces, then we'll attach them to the back bib piece, placing one raw edge right sides together at the markings transferred from the pattern piece, and pin in place. Then you can baste those straps in place. Here is my back facing piece. I've added a label to the center back and I've also finished the bottom raw edge. Place the back facing piece right sides together with the back bib and pin along the edges. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Here is my front facing piece, which I've also interfaced and finished the bottom raw edge. I'll place the facing right sides together with the front bib piece and pin in place along the side and top. Then I'll sew the side and top edges at 3/8 of an inch, just as we did for the back bib piece. Place the corresponding front and back armhole facing piece right sides together and pin in place along the bottom edge. Repeating for both sets. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and press the seams open. Then we'll finish the outer raw edges. Place the facings right sides together with their corresponding armhole and pin in place, aligning the center seams. The tops of the facing should just overlap the finished edge of the bottom of the bib facing. Repeat for both armhole facings. Then we can sew the armhole facings in place from one top edge across the seam to the opposite top edge. Trim each of the 4 top corners of the facings. Also clip into the curves along the bottom of the armhole. Turn the front and back facings right side out, poking out the corners. Also turn the armhole facings to the inside. And give all of those facings a good press. I've gone ahead and pinned my front and back facings in place all along the side edges. And we're going to top stitch. We're going to top stitch straight across both of the bib facings from one side to the other, right along our finishing stitches. Then we're also going to top stitch all along the side and top edges with about 1/4 to a 3/8 inch seam allowance. To install the front bib hardware, we're going to poke holes at the markings transferred from the pattern piece. Insert the back screws through the back side. Then we'll place each of the buttons on top of the screws and tap into place from the wrong side with a hammer. Now that the 2 buttons are secured to the front bib piece, we can put on the sliders. Starting with the adjustment piece first. Then adding the main clasp. Then we'll take the raw edge and run it through that adjustment bar, placing it through the top and out the bottom. Now that that's secured, fold the raw edge to the wrong side by about 3/8 to a 1/2 of an inch, and we'll sew that raw edge in place. Then we can place that sewn edge wrong sides together with the part of the strap directly behind it, allowing that fold to be about 1 inch. Then we'll sew the top fold of the portion that we just sewed across to the strap on the opposite side. Repeat to complete both straps. And now the overalls are complete. Thank you for watching this sew along. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future sewing tutorials, and I'll see you in the next video.